try this again. Hello YouTube, Ian here from Coolice Charge Case and Power Supplies. I wanted to make another little video of this X10S Express 3D printed shell I've been working on. Basically to show you guys obviously what I've been doing, if you like, and what I'm aiming for with this. So let me take the back panel off, because I wanted to show obviously the inside, because obviously now every component now is remounted. So it's a fully working transmitter again. The first video I made, which is either you've obviously watched previously or you're going to watch at the end of this one, was showing you where I was putting some of the components back in. So this one is obviously now complete. So let me take the back panel off and I can show you. Basically what I've done, and I was explaining it in the other one, I've remodeled the existing X10S shell, Horus shell. I've replicated all the internal details for all the various pillars and spacers and mounting points for obviously the PCB, the gimbals and everything else, but then I've obviously played around with the external shape and obviously the thickness of it to try and make this transmitter feel as good in my hands as, for example, the Radiomaster TX16S does, and previous to that, all of the JR transmitters I've had in the 41 years that I've been flying model helicopters, I've always flown JR on the helicopters, and each one of those has always felt nice to hold in the hands. I know where the switches are, I know where the buttons are, it just feels good. As whereas the Horus, when I got it, it worked, but for me it didn't feel quite nice. So I wanted to set myself a challenge, and obviously the revision 1 was okay, but it still wasn't quite right. So I've made some revisions then to this one. I reduced the height of the top by another 5mm. In doing so, then the angle of the shoulder switches here, or the angle of these shoulder parts here, then also reduced. That has so far made the feel of the side and the gripping around the front of the top of the sides of the transmitter better. At the same time then, previously then, I'd already moved the gimbals on the revision 1 further out, but they were still perhaps not quite close enough to the edges, so I've moved them out another 3mm. That then meant I had to take into account, let me grab hold of it without losing the battery, that then meant I had to take into account that the friction plates for the gimbals would then interfere with my 3D printed wheels for the side potentiometers. So I took the wheel and obviously then scalloped it, so it's exactly the same, and it's got the knurled finish, so when you want to run your finger across it to make any changes, you've got a bit of texture to it, so it's not just smooth plastic, and that actually really looks good and actually works well. So that obviously then just clips on the potentiometer, or slides on the potentiometer shaft, and then of course then with the scallop, which you should be able to see, it then misses as I rotate it for its movement of action. So that's worked out good. The vibration motor is obviously there in its own little clip. I find when obviously I put that in, I just have to put a screwdriver in and ever so slightly put a little bit of, twist the screwdriver a little bit just to open. I put the little slot in there so you can open the diameter, make the diameter slightly bigger, so the vibro motor then obviously just slides in. Then when you take the screwdriver out, it just pinches around the motor ever so lightly and holds it in place and stops it flapping around in the wind. So the other thing then I wanted to mess with, because I wasn't entirely convinced still with the feel, I'm probably overthinking things a little bit here, but obviously I wanted the side panels, which I'd already done. I got some neoprene, and then obviously on the laser cut the outside shape, and then obviously then etched Coolice X10S in the side, because I wanted to be a bit tarty like that. So the neoprene then obviously on the outside, it's only about 2mm thick, but it's held on with double-sided tape. That then gives you a little bit of a grippy kind of feel on the side of the case, rather than gripping soft plastic. So now you've got, you know, you don't feel like you have to, or should I say, you don't feel like you're going to drop the transmitter all the time, where it's obviously too slippy and everything else. So that works quite well. The back panel then obviously again I printed it in PETG, and of course then where I printed it this side, you've got the textured finish of the print bed, which is obviously very nice. It's a shame I can't get that same on the back face, but hey ho. The back face then is, if anything, you can probably just about see it. It's got some ripples to it, and I think that, I've never experienced it before, but then again I haven't done a terrible amount of PETG printing before. I think where it was warm, well, where it was being extruded and going over the infill, which was quite low potentially, the filament was then sagging, hence why it's got a kind of like a rippled effect, which admittedly it looks quite good. It looks like a sand texture kind of thing, but when I reprint it, I'll try and get rid of that by either increasing the top and bottom layer count to obviously give it a better chance to obviously smooth out. But one of the last bits I'm messing with at the moment again was the feel of the transmitter in my hand. So originally I've obviously got these 3D printed, they're PLA grips admittedly, but then what I was doing, I was covering them in glue and then sticking suede over the top of it. So it was a hard grip, but it had the suede feel to it with the material over top, which looked very good kind of thing, a little bit more professional, and obviously gave it a textured feel. But the original grip, side grips, went higher up, they went to the top. I've shortened those, I've shortened them down kind of thing, but what I still found was where my finger was and my little finger, it still didn't seem to like the curve too much. So while I was cutting the side panels out of the neoprene, I then cut this one, this side panel here, or should I say this back panel here. So it's again the 2mm neoprene, so it's just literally going to be flat rather than shaped, with the view then that would obviously feel better in the hands, and I think it is going to, but obviously I've only done one side at the moment, so I can kind of try and compare. So obviously again you can see it's open here. I haven't printed the cup for the RF module here because I know that works already, so that's fine, I can print that when I'm ready. But if I put the back panel on, it does kind of locate as well on the little USB charge port and obviously the jack plug there. But I've got a couple of screws, that obviously then centers the back panel as well. So let's start that one, put the other side in as well, so that will keep it in place. That will also keep the battery in place, although that still needs a little bit of foam because it does move around a couple of millimeters underneath there, I'm feeling. If I just tighten those up, they're going straight into the plastic, they're the self-tapping type. So there you go, you don't have to put any real pressure on it, just nip it up. So now, if I turn it over, I can have a play and see how it feels in the hands, and obviously I would have it resting on my beer gut, for want of a better word. Actually feels quite good. You can probably see better than I can obviously with the camera lens, the way my little fingers want to lay, and this flat side here actually does feel a bit better again. This one, I don't know whether it's due to the width I've made them kind of thing, so it kind of wants to pull my finger and my hand round, which then makes it feel a little bit uncomfortable kind of thing, whereas the flat side now, it does feel a little bit more. And I'm comparing it to the Radiomaster TX16S that I've got, which it just feels nice. I mean, admittedly that's a smaller transmitter, the gimbals are closer together anyway, so you know you do feel that the Horus is a wide transmitter, there's no getting away from that. And the PCB inside, which is a shame it's so wide, dictates the fact that it's got to be X amount of wide to accommodate that to start with. So I'm trying to, because I'm trying to get to the point where I either decide, do I keep the Horus or do I stick to the Radiomaster solely for my models and stuff. Ultimately I'd like to use Access on the more expensive models rather than the multi-protocol module, but although that is proven to be very, very reliable, but still, I'd still like to use something a little bit better on the larger 550 class machines and above, especially the 700. So I'm trying to get to grips with this Horus and set myself the challenge, obviously, with the 3D printed case, which has turned out really well. This obviously being the revision 2, a little bit more rounded, a little bit more softer on top. It's actually working a lot better. So hopefully, I'll have to make another one of these now for this side, so I can get rid of this grip, and then instead of grabbing the Radiomaster, start to grab this to fly the little OMP models. So I kind of try and get used to the feel of this, but touch wood, actually feels like it could be the way to go. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. So, but I didn't want to waffle on too much. But one of the videos I showed of this transmitter with obviously the gimbal calibration issue when EdgeTX was still a little bit more in its infancy with an issue, seems to have got a good few views. So I I thought in my mind some of you might appreciate to see what I'm actually doing with the 3D printed shell of this, because it's different. It's a lot of intricacy. It took me a hell of a long time to work out all the various printed parts and stuff, and the areas and the spaces and stuff, but eventually I realised that if I chopped the shell into sections, I could just print the middle section with the buttons, print that off in a lot less time, make sure that all worked. Then when I was happy with that, then move on to the lower half of the transmitter, then also then just print the screen half with all the buttons and the locations. And then when I was really happy with everything, then I would obviously then commit to printing the full fascia, because that was just over a 19-hour print for the front half of everything. So that was obviously a big commitment that, you know, you couldn't realistically do that all the time and have mistakes. So touch wood, it's worked out really well. It feels nice. So hopefully this one might be it, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a look to see what I'm doing. I got some feet on the bottom, of course, and also got the access to the SD card. It's a little bit more recessed in there with obviously the 3D print, but you can get to it with some some tweezers in the back, so it just pops out, and the reset button, battery bay with the battery lid there. So just wanted to show you guys obviously what I've been up to, and hopefully you might be interested in seeing it. But thanks for your time, hope you enjoy watching it, and if I do anything else, I'll try and take another video and keep you guys updated. Take care of yourself, bye bye. Right, and there we go. So that's both gimbals in. Let's turn it over and have a look. That's better. Yeah, so that's both gimbals in now. Starting to look a bit more like a transmitter, which is good. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this video now, and then I'll try and get the screen in the lower half, and obviously then I'll turn it back on. Speak to you soon. Bye. Yep, we're recording. Good morning, YouTube. Ian here from Coolice Charles' Compile Supplies. Yeah. Got something slightly different to show you today, actually. I'm tinkering around with one of my transmitters, in this case a FrSky Horus X10S Express, because I wasn't too keen on the actual feel or the ergonomics of the original shell. So just over a year ago now, actually, because it came up on my Facebook feed, I started to design another outer shell for it. And in the last week, I've then obviously taken that shell design and changed it slightly, which I think hopefully will be for the better. So I thought some of you might like to see it. So basically what I've done, this was the first, actually that was the revision one I've just done, but it messed up, but it gives you an idea. So basically, as you can tell, I've replicated all the internal details of the original FrSky X10S Express shell, because obviously all the PCBs and stuff have to be mounted onto these points that are obviously at a specific height, and of course then the buttons locate and obviously bolt in on the various mounting points. So there was originally quite a lot of prototyping. In the end, I realised when I was doing this, I could also chop the design into various sections. So instead of having to print the whole thing, which obviously takes a long time, this print alone takes 20 hours on the Prusa Mark III's. I would then obviously chop out the section, print that, check to make sure it all fit, adjust as necessary, and then of course then once I was happy, and I do this for all individual sections as well, so I chopped out the middle, printed this area out, made sure it all fit, printed, cut off the bottom half kind of thing, and obviously only came up to about 1 centimetre height wise. Then obviously made sure everything fitted on this perspective, and likewise then with the top, with the switches and the gimbals as well. So eventually then, when I was happy, then obviously I'd done a full print. This is obviously the revision 2, and on this one I've actually made the top 5mm shorter than what I originally did, and I've lessened the slope of the shoulder switches here. In fact, I'll see if I can reach for the original one. It's behind me, hopefully nothing else is going to fall out of it. Here we go. Here's the here's the revision 1. So it gives you a bit of an idea. Oh, I even had to 3D print the little knobs, the little wheels to go on the side there for the potentiometers. So as you can see, this was revision 1, So it looks very similar, to be fair. The overall style of it hasn't changed, apart from the corners and the bottom. I've made them a lot more rounded, and then I've reduced the overall height of the transmitter. And at the same time, I also then moved the gimbals further out to the side, because again, I thought I'd done right with that, but I hadn't. I think they were still about 3mm too far in, so I've gone back out, and you can obviously see that evident by the space in here compared to there. So what's happening now? Basically, as you can tell, the first one is practically in bits. I printed this one 2 days ago, and I didn't realise, you can see the holes where I moved them. I didn't grab, I'm guessing I didn't grab the outer recess, and of course then I didn't realise until I'd completed the 20-hour print. So I set it off. I made the changes. It also highlighted a couple of other issues. So like in the corner, getting the little short shoulder switch in there with obviously the raised gimbal mount, I had to, it was a bit difficult. So I put a little scallop there, I put a little cutout in there, so the switch obviously falls into this gap and then obviously then slides into position and is then secured with the outer nut. And that works quite well, so I'm pleased with that. And of course, before I started the video filming this, I've already practically installed one side, so I can make sure everything's okay. The only thing I noticed there, which I was obviously careful of, but the screw for the, or should I say the fourth screw up in the top left hand corner of the gimbal, that's obviously a little bit more difficult to get to. Perhaps I might change that in a later revision. I might scallop out where obviously I've had to create this platform here to mount the side mounted potentiometer. I could scallop out this corner here a little bit further then to allow me to poke the screwdriver down to it rather than coming at an angle. That's something I might change, we'll see. But I wanted to obviously make sure there was strength there, because I'm having to use supports there to produce that platform there from this point onwards. So of course then I certainly didn't want to run the risk of snapping that off while you're trying to break away the supports underneath. But as you can see, so far it's all going in quite well. I thought I'd try and video film a little bit of this and show you what's going on, because some of you might be interested. Obviously the switch platform is in there. I've got everything kind of broken down, if you like. Some of these posts I've noticed. And the other thing I've made here, this print is now from PETG. The original version I did, which is this one here, I used Prusament PLA, which is great. It's a lovely material. It's obviously it's the Galaxy Black, so it's the black filament with the silver flecks in it. So it looks amazing. And of course then I used the smooth print sheet for that. So of course then we've got a smooth fascia there. And it worked quite good, but of course, you know, not that I would leave my transmitter in the bright sunlight, but it could obviously soften quite easily being PLA if you weren't careful. So when I knew I was coming to do it again, I grabbed some PETG, and again I've used, it's actually Galaxy Black as well. I'm surprised they called it the same, but anyway, it's a Galaxy Black with the silver flecks in it, and it gives obviously quite a nice finish. The other thing then I used obviously with the PETG, I used the Prusament textured sheet, so we've now got the mottled finish on it. Potentially I am going to purchase, I think, the new satin sheet they do, which has been out for about 6 or 8 months now, I think, because that's a bit more usable on PLA and PETG and ABS, I think, from memory. So that'll be quite nice for any future ones of this. Anything with this one, compared to the 20-hour print that failed, that one was perfect, apart from the holes. This one's obviously got a little bit of a hiccup there. I'm guessing it picked up the first layer part for some unknown reason. I don't know why, and deposited it somewhere else. So that's a little bit annoying. For someone like myself that's a little bit of a perfectionist, I see that and I'm thinking, oh, balls. But I'm not going to reprint another one yet. I want to make sure this all works, kind of thing. And if it does, I can print another one in time and transfer it over, and we go from there. But so at the moment, I'm obviously I'm carrying on transferring all the stuff across. So if this goes all right, it should be fine. If not, you'll probably hear me swearing on camera. So let me put that one aside, because I've finished with that one for a minute. I'm basically now obviously still having to strip the transmitter. So, and yep, I've put that one in the wrong place. So this one obviously needs to come out. Did I use this one? Yeah, I did. Where I'm obviously taking little bits out at a time to do it. I thought that was the elevator one, and it's not. The elevator one is still in the other shell, so that's not that. So I think I've got some pictures as well on my, there we go. I've got some pictures on my computer, so I can refer back to where they all go and stuff. So that one's obviously got to go there, which is correct. So put the little Phillips screw back in. Obviously it's the screws are having to cut their own threads now back into the 3D printed plastic pillars. So I'm obviously being careful to make sure that the screwdriver doesn't start to slip, or I don't put too much pressure on it. We'll do that. Luckily it appears I've got the hole size just right, to be fair. I was having an issue because obviously PETG prints obviously slightly differently to PLA. The tolerance in of some of the openings is obviously slightly different. Put that there, but that's obviously got in nice. So we can obviously now do the same with the elevator trim. Probably going to get a bit boring, so I'll probably end up pausing you and coming back in a bit kind of thing when some things are done, but it might be quite nice for some of you to watch some of this. So let's transfer over the elevator trim. Before I finish doing that screw up, let's do the other screw as well, so it acts as an alignment guide, and obviously then I can put the shell in a better position for me because I'm right-handed. I'll do that one up, I'll do this one up. And there we go. So we've got the two trimmers in. That's the aileron, that's the elevator, and we're great. So, actually, spying that one, I think there might be a little bit of a height difference there. I might be wrong, unless there's a height difference in the actual. But it's putting a little bit of pressure on that board, so we'll just take the pressure off of that. There you go. Might have to check that, check the height of those pillars. Again, this is where there's might be a slight difference in the thickness of the materials and stuff like that, which there shouldn't be, but obviously PETG obviously prints slightly differently. So yeah, so what we're doing next, oh yeah, that's what I was going to try and do. I was going to try and take out the those screwdrivers. I need those hexagon screwdrivers. I was going to try and take out the middle potentiometers. So 1, 2, and middle. As you can see, obviously, where with the recessed cylinder circle cut out on the front, obviously the nuts recess into the shell. So that looks quite nice to me. So let's try and get these out. Undo it. I always find if I just undo it with the bigger pliers. 1, 2. Then I can do it with my tweezers, which is easier just to unscrew. Oh, that switch is falling through. That switch is this one's falling through, and I have labelled or written on the back of these switches with a marker pen L, M, and R for left, middle, and right. So in theory, once I've done that, and the switches are just holding on one of the error wires, so I can just turn it over and the nuts fall out. So I can revert to one of my images on my PC just to double check, because I've got it here. And yeah, so with the lettering, we've got left, and hopefully the holes are just right for these, because I haven't already tested these ones. So yep, it is. So we've got left, Always like to try and untangle the wires if we can. We've got left, we've got middle, which goes in there like so, and then we've got R for right, and that is going to pop in there like so, and there we go, and we're in. Right, so which one of those is going to fall out? Let's see if I can hold all three. Probably none. We'll put the nuts back on, roll off any little bits of stray plastic I've got from obviously where I've cleaned up the print. It's always fun trying to get it started. Try the other one. Here it goes. That's starting now. That's one. Always nip it up in a minute with the thicker needle nose pliers. I'll get it started first with this. That way then if it doesn't line up, here it goes. Once you've done one, normally you start to remember the technique you've got to use to do it. Two, get the other one, make sure there's no bits of plastic on it. Probably going to be a bit boring for you to watch this kind of video, but in a bit maybe I might pause it, do a little bit more, then obviously come back. Try to do the most. Nip that up, nip that one. Nip this one. And there we go. So they're in. Just need to put the knobs back on, which I can do. That one's fine. Don't really want to push it all the way down, just lift it up just a fraction so it's not rubbing on the nut. So there's just the friction of the pot itself, and this one I always try and get it in the middle, but it never defaults to the middle. Nip it up, and there we go. So now we've got the switches in. Got the pots and the switches and the right hand side gimbal, so effectively now I need to transfer my attention to the gimbal on this side. Now I think, let me just check. Yeah, no. I think from memory I had to clean out a little bit of a burr on the inside of this, so the potentiometer, so the pot fits in there. Right, so let's give this a go. So stand that aside for a second. Just need to take the original bits out of this one. Take my little wheel off. What are we going to do? Right, let's unplug it first so we don't forget when we come around to pull the plugs. Take the gimbal out the way first. I'll do the 4 screws. So far it's all fitting quite nicely, to be fair, although I've done the hard part already. Obviously last year was the part where I did the most work, making sure that all the sizing and the dimensions were all correct and everything else. So this particular round of modifications, if you want to call it that, is a little bit more well rehearsed. got quite handy at taking this transmitter apart, to be fair, which is good. It's quite nice. Obviously always worry a little bit, because the last thing you want is any issues once it's back together. You certainly don't want to upset the apple cart and lose a model due to putting something wrong or whatever, so I'm careful. We'll take up the throttle one. Actually, perhaps while we're here, we won't do that one. We'll leave that there aside. Right, let me take the switches out, I think, next. Now, what I did do was, on the other ones, let me put a bit of an X. I should be able to just about see that marker pen on there. And that should help me put them back in the right way up. So I think the last time I did it, I did put one in the wrong way up, so not too much of an issue. Just have to undo it and turn it around 180 degrees, but save some time. Take these out, 3-position switch, put it in the middle, makes it easier. I'm pretty sure I've got I purchased some different colour nuts, switch nuts, and I'm pretty sure I've got the tool for this size of nut anyway, but or does it not fit these ones? I can't remember, but the needle nose pliers are super handy. So those switches are loose. I need to do these ones on top to get it in a position that I can deal with it better. Right, now it's loose, I can switch, we can put that to the free middle position. When it's loose, I always switch to my tweezer. It's just easy, then I can go round and round and round. Hold my switch from behind so it don't fall out. And there's those. I need to use my super long pliers for this nut. We'll undo that. A bit of help from underneath, that way then I can just turn the nut by hand and we're loose. Right, so now these switches are going to come out. Put that aside for a minute, we'll stand it on its feet rather than on its face. Bring the original one over. Right, now this is obviously where it's quite interesting, because you've got multiple bits. So now from memory, with the other side, I think I did this one first. And I try and orientate the wires in the direction I'm going to want them to go in. Just double check, make sure, yep, I've got all the support off underneath. So we're starting with a flat face, because we certainly don't want to have the switch at an angle. As you can see, it's a little bit fiddly. I have to get it in at an angle. Do I have to open that hole up a bit more? No, I don't. There we go. I love it when they get tolerance in just right on 3D prints. So now, nut back on that so it doesn't drop back out at the most inopportune moment. There we go. Right side. There's that one. Right, now from memory, the next one which is worth me putting in is that one. Right, and we've got an X. I can just about see my X on it where I got to it, and that's the short one. And as you can see, when I go to slide it in, it's going to fall into that recess, or the little scallop there that I put on the raised platform there for the gimbal. So that switch then also just falls into place and is able then to be slid into position. Oh, without it, if I've got to hold it right so it doesn't rotate round on me. Did I open up that hole correctly? Yes, I did. It keeps wanting to turn, and there we go. So there's that one. Couple of switches hiding under here, with the next one with the X on it. It's not that one. It's not that one. It's that one. That one goes at the top. So what, before they keep falling in and out, I am going to, got a bit of a burr underneath it, that one. I might take that one off on the bottom side. That's, even if we just do them finger tight, that way then they're not going to fall out. Yeah, got a bit of a burr on those two underneath, so I think I'll run those over some emery paper. Hopefully I've angled my mobile phone correctly, or else you're going to be watching a whole lot of nothing. In which case then you probably won't see none of this, because then I won't put it on YouTube. But anyway, let's tighten this up. Working all right. Finger tight. There we go. So those ones are in. Let me get a bit of. Can I use? I wonder if I can do it on my disc that I've got handy. It's just the bottom. I can feel a little bit of a. So I'll see if I can just rub that off. That's better. That's better. Just a little burr, I think, where they've done the threading on it. I can feel it. I didn't notice it when I did this last year, so must have just missed it. But where I've gone to pick it up now, I can feel it. And if I'm going to do something, it's got to be done right. So. Now then, we've got the short screw, the short switch is on the inner, and the long switch is on the outside, right? So I can check from that. We've got, that one goes on top, like that, and that one goes that way. Always take photographs. I'm sure you've heard it before, many people already do it, but do like myself, take some photographs beforehand of the back side of things if you're taking stuff apart or whatever, and then you can always revert back to the pictures, which is what I'm doing on my PC screen next to me, just to jog my memory which way the wires go. Just saves a lot of aggravation. Forgetting my own trick. Oh, and we lost it. She's going, there she goes. The recessed holes on those are just right, to be fair. They could perhaps be an extra 0.1 of a millimetre bigger, just to not provide any real drag on this nut, so it just rotates in nicely. But as you can see, once it is going, it is there. It's just it's an alignment issue. Once it's aligned in the hole, it's perfect. That one's done. That switch the other way, and that one's done. Right, so we've got the front face switches, I think they were called. Yeah, I've moved them a little bit further across as well, because on the Horus setup they're obviously a little bit further justified to the outside, if you like, which is good. But then obviously I was finding the way I held my transmitter sticks, my knuckle was hitting the switches, so that's no good. Hence why I lengthened it, because I lengthened it too far. I've now reduced it back down 5 millimeters, and so far this seems better. Obviously on the sides, I just revert to this one, obviously with a laser cutter. Then obviously I can laser cut some thin neoprene foam, and then of course then I've put me laser etched my name and an X10S on the side. So I'll potentially be doing the same thing on this or something else. I'm not sure yet, depending on how it feels. I'm just basically going through the motions and obviously seeing what works, what can I do to make this transmitter feel nice to me, because I've got my Radiomaster TX16S behind me, and I love the feel of that transmitter. So this one, I want to fall in love with it. I want to like it. I want to hold it. I want to pick it up, and I want to use it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this particular format is going to be the better one. So let's see. Right, now this is where it gets a little bit more difficult, because you've got to make sure that you slide the gimbal in place, but at the same time not pinch any of the wires. So I'm quite crafty, and I'll try and push them in the direction I need them to go to start with. So, and then using the magnifier, so if I push them over there, hopefully I can just drop the gimbal in again like I did on the other side, and not quite. Now the gimbals are in their holes, they are quite a good fit, to be fair. I think I've got something. Let me just check this first, make sure it goes in. Again, I'm having to just put a little bit of an extra of a, yeah, that one's a little bit tight in there. So I need to get my deburring tool, which I've already done. I was hoping I'd done it enough, but obviously not quite. And just go around inside the circle, just so the gimbal fits in. I did open them out because originally the print of this that failed was obviously just that was obviously a little bit too tight with the gimbal, so I did open it up 0.4 of a millimetre, but it's obviously still not quite enough. Let's get rid of the little bits of plastic. There's one bit there, we're going to get rid of that, and we're off. Let's try this one. Doesn't need much there. There we go. There we go. Now it's in. Not quite. It's still where we got. Ah, there we go. We've got some high points there. That won't help. Let me just sandpaper it. The thing, if you get any little high points, even though the circle that you've 3D printed or designed on your print is still good and it's the right size, you get like a little raised area, it's gonna interfere. Now what I've learned with that, once you've done it, it obviously widens up a little bit. If I get the little blowtorch, then lightly mount the surface, it brings the colour back, which is good. That's what we want. I want it to look like it's a factory kind of product. Let's see if this one does. There we go. Now she's clicked into place and she's flat. She's good. I certainly don't want it floppy within there. I want it kind of nice and fitted. And now can I guide? No, you can't. So now this is where you've got to obviously put the wires in where you want them. So it helps if you can push them right over into the corner to put the gimbal into place. Obviously at the same time I also want to make sure I haven't, there we go, I also want to make sure I've not pinched any, so I'm going to use my magnifier. Good. No wires pinched, so we've got, yeah, perfect. Yeah, no wires pinched under that gimbal, so that's good. So I can start. What we'll do, we'll put those screws in, so just in case we don't want the gimbal then plopping out. What I'm having to do here is obviously I can put the 3 of them in using my preferred screwdriver, because this one fits the screw heads just right. So let's do that, put it where I need to again. Screw them in. third one. And then the fourth one, which is right up in this corner, that's where it gets just a little bit more tricky. Well, actually, you know what? I ain't pinched the wire, so why is that? That wire's a little bit tighter than I was expecting. So what is, there we go. It's loose. It's just that wire's gone. That wire was a little bit more. It felt tighter there because it was doing a Z shape, where the gap. I can show you where the gap between obviously the potentiometer on the side here and the gimbal assembly is quite tight. That wire for this switch had done a Z shape, so while it wasn't being pinched, it was obviously putting pressure on it. Now I've pushed it into the corner, into the opening, and now we've got loose wires. That's great, perfect, nothing being done there. But I still need to get this screw into that corner, and that's where, so again I'm going to use my magnifier. I'm going to try and push the wires across again if I can, get them out the way. It's one, the potentiometer wire needs to go across, that's better, and the other wires come towards me to make an opening. And it didn't fall off my screwdriver and fall down into the dark recesses of space, so that's good. Let's put the orientate the transmitter in a position where I can get to it again. We'll see, I'm just feeling for it. There it goes, that's where it stopped. Need to poke around in there again, make sure I've not pinched any wires, which I haven't. No, they're fine.